Hello, guys. I'm gonna read for you today. So, this is a creepypasta called The Window Man by Rye of Sunshine. It's on an app called Creepypasta. I have it on Android. And, the reviews on it seem pretty good, so I thought I'd read it. I want to try new things. So here I go. The Window Man. I was no ordinary child. I saw things, heard things, that haunted me well into my adult years. My gift had been faded from lack of practice, but once I share my experiences, I believe you will understand why I chose to close off my consciousness. The following story is entirely true and confirmable. I love interior design. While other children my age dreamed about their perfect wedding, I was dreaming about the perfect furniture arrangement. They spent hours playing with dolls, and I spent the same hours rearranging dollhouses. When I came across this lovely pair of pale white sheer curtains, I was obsessed. I pictured them, glittering with sunshine on a summer afternoon, while I read in my new bedroom. I knew they'd complement my dark furniture and make my space feeling airy and bright. My mother, brother, and I had just moved into a small ranch home, built into the hill above a small pond. It was nestled into the overgrowth, and although the neighbors were not far, you couldn't see their crumbling cottages through the trees and reeds that consumed the land. Our home was technically waterfront, but the water's edge was hidden in the thick marsh, beyond the blue watered glitter. I have the reading skill of a fifth grader. In the back of our houses, a dirt trail led to a boat launch where local fishermen would pass the time. Plainville was a small town between four large, sloping mountains, most of which had been chipped into for mining. There was a deep rift where the mountains met, where the water pooled and became Hamilton Pond. When the rain fell, the pond wound its way into a stream, and then began the Quinnipiac River just around the bend. At first appearance, the pond seemed quaint and quiet, but multiple attempts to collect data proved that its depth was immeasurable, and peculiar things often occurred. Swimming was forbidden, as well as ice skating, as the pond rarely froze solid due to its ever-flowing nature, and those who dared trespass on the fragile ice risked plunging into the black water below, never to be found. The population of snapping turtles was excessive, and a pair of wild swans intimidated the few that wandered too close to their marshy nest. I watched through my window at one of the fishermen, who had unfortunately made that mistake. The swans spread their wide white wings, splashing violently and snapping their sharp black beaks. They rushed towards him. "Get out! Get out!" the loud screeching squawks threatened. The man fell backward and stumbled to his feet, leaving his fists spilled and flopped out of his metal pail. Shadows beneath the water rose, breaking the surface of the glistening pool. Ominous, beady black eyes pierced the water as the turtles craned their necks in unison to witness the commotion. My bedroom window, in the back corner of the house where the hill dropped down, overlooked the budding wildlife. There were moments where the fish jumped from the lake early in the morning to catch breeding mosquitoes who wandered too close, breaking the glass-like reflection of the orange and rose sky. In those moments, the world stood still and serene. I'd wake with the glow shining through the shears, make myself a fresh brewed espresso, and lounge on the back deck on some early mornings. But this world was a different place when the sun set. Although we had moved here recently, we were settling in gracefully. There were a few challenges. We had little help to move and spent a few months between properties to prepare for the sale of our old home. There were too many memories there. We finally settled mid-October. My attendance was improved, and I had begun making friends in class. There was a boy who'd call me every night after 9 when the minutes of our Virgin Mobile cell phones were free. My brother found his clique and began impressing his friends with his knowledge on computers. And even my mother has started talking to the man that used to live next door. For a while, we were all comfortable and happy. The man had helped us move when it got difficult, and he was there for the newly widowed mother. She soon fell for every charm, but I learned quickly that I could not see past the darkness that enveloped his aura and made his vile intentions churn my stomach. It didn't help that I was coming into my rebellious teenage years after the death of my father. But the presence of the man who stared at my body behind my mother's back and pinched me whenever I passed him in the hall deeply disturbed me. As their relationship developed, I developed into a recluse, hardly leaving my room or socializing save for my late-night telephone conversations. My window became my complete perception of the outdoors. A crisp breeze shuddered through my curtains, and I peered through them to watch barren, skeletal trees quiver against the gray sky, twisting in the gust of wind. Long dark branches scratched against the siding. The noise made an eerie comparison to the cityscape that had played consistently in the background of our old home. When my mother became pregnant, the man's demon came to life. It was 3:33 on my alarm clock, and I jumped awake from a sound sleep, as if I had fallen in a nightmare. A strange sound filled the air. It was a groaning and a hissing and a churning, a steady boiling that rumbled and echoed through the mountains. I convinced myself that it was something somehow related to the mine nearby, or it was just trapped air bubbles beneath the mud. I felt for the tremble of an earthquake that could have stirred up a noise of this magnitude, but nothing came. I turned over in bed, disturbed and confused, but eventually found my way back to rest. I dragged through school the next day, sneaking some time on Google to research bubbling ponds, and turned up next to nothing. I couldn't explain it away, despite my efforts, and I wandered, dazed, from class to class, wondering what I could have witnessed, wondering if I had heard some kind of hallucination. My day rambled through. I ate dinner. I talked to my friends. I did my best to ignore my mom's new boyfriend. I hid in my room, did my homework, and watched television until my eyes drifted off into the blurring colors. At 3:33, the groaning began. It sounded like thick slime and muck popping under the water. It was dark, like the black sky had swallowed everything it touched. I felt my hands along the walls in my house, trying not to wake my family, and grabbed at the outline of the doorknob in the dark. On the back deck, I could see shapes in the night. Edges of foliage and the reflection of the pale moon barely lit the water. It bounced around violently. It was as though hot tub jets had been activated, rolling through ink. In the pitch darkness, the pond withered and seethed. The animals were silent, and the bubbles was deafening. This was not real, was it? I was mesmerized. The air was still, but wet with dew and chilling my skin. I could feel the vapor on my lips, cold, wet, bleak. Nothing moved or made a noise except for the loud, smacking deep gulps of the pond. Droplets formed on the fine hairs of my arm, glittering moonlight as I backed inside. It was getting more difficult to find peace in the night, in the darkness that I usually slept through. It was ironically too dark to fall asleep. For a few nights, nothing happened. The owls and crickets were loud and happy. I was finally able to fall asleep and cuddle up in my blanket. If I opened my eyes and saw 3 on the clock, I'd shut them. I did not want to witness anything that seemed unnatural. It got to the point where I was comfortable laying in bed and making phone calls. I will never forget this night. I was sitting in my bed next to my window. I had rearranged my room yet again, and the side of my bed pressed against the window sill, holding my phone against my ear. My bedside light was on, but out of the corner of my eye I saw a beam of light, a flashlight, sweeping across the front yard, left to right, right to left, back again. I think the neighbors might have had a party. Maybe some drunk guy lost his keys, I asked myself out loud. What? Asked my best friend on the other line. I'm sorry, I saw something. Something's got a flashlight. Slowly and quietly, the darkness outside thickened. A low rumbling began in the background, and the crickets went quiet. The air felt still and cold. It felt dead. My breath was the loudest thing in the world, and my eyes watched the swaying beam on the ground. It got closer to the back of the house, closer to my window. Hello? My phone went silent. 3:33 on my alarm clock. blinking red digits. At first, I recognized the silhouette as a lanky, tall man. My eyes did not adjust well, and I could barely make out his shape. He wore a hat and a long coat. He walked stiffly. My second understanding was that he was a circus performer on stilts. His bones wobbled, but his posture remained upright. Left to right, right to left, back again. The light disappeared as he got closer to the house. I could tell he was against the wall right next to my window, right out of sight. I could feel it. Then he walked slowly, within the frame of the window, enough for his pin-stripped jacket to be illuminated. With its cartoonish lapel, his clothes were not of this time. His bowler hat had a wide brim, and he adjusted it, then turned his head and saw me. Then he smiled. He was not a man, not like any human man I'd ever seen. His eyes pierced me, and I was stuck. I do not know how long we stayed, locked in a stare. I could not turn away. I could not scream. I was frozen, and my veins were pulsing with adrenaline. His face was pale, a whitish gray. His thin, unturped lips revealed a row of short, sharp teeth. His nose was bent and crooked, his eyebrows thick and wild. His eyes were not human. The irises were small against the whites of his pupils, and they were penetrating. The stripes on his jackets were purple. I knew what he wanted. He told me he wanted to come in. I felt the evil radiating through the window, and I could not move. But I had one thought in my mind. Maybe from reading too many stories as a child, the churning pond gathered momentum in the background. A vampire cannot come in unless he is invited. Vampire or not, he seemed to need an invitation I wasn't going to give him. I stood my ground, staring. I was in the light, my bedside lamp illuminating my room. He couldn't come in unless I turned it off. I saw him realize it was a no, and his smile faded. He could read my mind? It wasn't like I could speak. Apparently, he had no problem speaking at all. The word he spoke was both growled and hissed, but I did not understand it. It was not English. Latin was my best guess. He sounded like an animal. It echoed in my head, and although I saw his lips pronounce it, it did not know if I heard it with my ears. The next thing I remember is waking from my trance, hearing crickets and staring out the window at nothing but darkness. I did not see him vanish, but the energy his presence had brought was completely dissipated. Hands shaking, I grabbed my phone from my lap and texted my brother. Please be awake. Please come upstairs. Please be awake. A few moments later, the stairs pounded as my brother ascended. I could not tell he was hurrying, obviously concerned by my message, which was incredibly out of character. What's up? He poked his head in. I was pale. I could still not speak aloud. Seeing my brother brought me back to our world, but the chills still ran through my gut. I saw something bad. I begged him not to go outside and look, not until morning. I couldn't describe the suited man, and I didn't want to haunt my brother with what I had witnessed. I told him I thought I had seen someone, leaving wide gaps in my description. The next morning, my brother and I walked around our house looking for footprints or evidence. There was none, of course. But what I realized was that since my window was at the back of the slope we were built into, it was 2 stories high, whereas the front of the house was only 1 story, and the man in the hat walked as though the ground was even terrain, right up to my window, with no difficulty. We came back inside, discussing our observations, when my mother's boyfriend emerged from her room. Hey, he drunkenly mumbled at me, clearing a 6-pack by 9 a.m. You gotta stop talking to those boys. Don't think I didn't notice the one peeking through your window last night. You aren't going to get away with it this time. My brother's eyes widened. It meant something different to me. I dealt with strong intuitive feelings my entire life, but visions were new, and it seemed peculiar that he had seen what I had, and it didn't disturb him. I had originally mistaken the man for a person. That very day, I took down the sheer white panels and hung heavy, thick drapes. The last thing I wanted to see, ever again, was the window man. Alright guys, so that was The Window Man by Rye of Sunshine. He gave me a bit of chills. I definitely would not want to see something like that by my window. Then again, I'm also not a girl. I probably would have got up and stole him in the face. He would have dropped down 2 stories. But, that's me. So if you like the video, give it a like. And if you want to see more, yeah, give it a like. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a nice day.